Good morning. Good morning. My name is Lamo. In a moment, Venerable George Churinoff will be here. We're very fortunate to have him as a teacher today. I believe he's going to repeat the same teaching that he gave earlier this morning. And it was a wonderful teaching on meditation and the definition of meditation and the types of meditation. And then we actually did the practice. We sort of did a stabilizing meditation and or calming meditation, and then we did a counting meditation and then an analytical meditation. So we did that at the beginning and at the end. So if you have, okay, so when he enters, then you'll see many of us prostrating, and if you've never been here before, you're welcome to remain standing if you feel uncomfortable prostrating, and we have been prostrating along with him at the same time also. This was a little different in other teachers. And so if you please either turn off your cell phones or put them on mute or vibrate, and that would be very helpful. And Venerable George does ask for input, questions. He invites questions, so here we are.
Some of the older students. If you'd like to make prostrations with you, welcome. Sit down. Good morning.
Good morning.
So we're going to do some prayers that Venerable will lead as usual. Yeah.
Okay. So if you'll please open the white prayer book. If you're at sitting at the pew, it's at the end of the pew or the aisle. And turn to the first base sheet. And we'll chant Shakyamuni Buddha's mantra 3 times, the 4 immeasurables in English, and then right below that in Tibetan. Taya ta om mune mune maha munaye soha. Taya ta om mune mune maha munaye soha. Tayata om mune mune maha munaye soha. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Sentientam cedevatam Devegyudam Demparjuchi Dunya Dondu Nyagiyudam Dewarjuchi Dunya Mepe Dewadam Midre Warjuchi Nyering Chadam Nidam Jewe Tanyom Lane Parjuchi. Now, if you please turn the page to the first pink sheet. At the bottom, there are two mantras. Let's chant Chanrezig's mantra 8 times, and then Green Tara's mantra 7 times. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Om Taritu Taritu Resoha. 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 Okay, now the children are welcome to go to their classes. If your child has never been to the class, would you please accompany your child, find out where to pick your child up, fill out a survey form.
It's great. Great group of kids. Was your children here? Too old. Okay. Not old enough to come to this, but too old for the kids. Yeah. Yeah. So welcome. Good morning. My name is George. I have a Tibetan name, Tupten Sultrim. But when people hear that, they say, I'll just call you George. So that's morphed into that. Generally, when we take ordination, like in the Christian tradition also, like when people take monastic vows, they get a new name and helps you identify with a, separate from your old identity, you might say. But even some of the lamas call me George. They say Dorj sometimes, like they think it's Dorje or something. It's Dorj. I don't know George, but Tupten Sultrim, if you like. So I listened to Geshe-la's last discourse before he left, and I wanted to sort of continue a little bit in that same stream. Geshe-la was talking a little bit, amongst other things, about meditation. And there are different kinds of meditation Just by the way, are there some people here who've never been to Kadampa Center before? Okay, thank you. And some people who are just relatively new, besides those two? Okay, there's a couple of new people. So just to remind the rest of you, the word that we translate in English as meditation is a Sanskrit word, bhavana. In Tibetan, we say gom. The definition of bhavana or gom is to familiarize the mind with a wholesome object. Sometimes you might say, if you're just constantly thinking negative thoughts and getting angry, you might think, someone would say, what are you doing? I'm meditating on anger. That wouldn't constitute, from a Buddhist perspective, that wouldn't constitute real meditation because you're not familiarizing yourself with a wholesome object. Do you know what I mean by wholesome object? Wholesome, like when we talk about wholesome food, virtuous object or wholesome object would mean something that's beneficial for your mind. The reason that that's a special feature of Buddhism is that by familiarizing with wholesome states, they can become more part and parcel of our personality. They can become our normal waking state default state, rather than our kind of bemused, irritated, sometimes up, sometimes down state of mind. We can familiarize it with a state that's more equanimous and maybe more peaceful and generous and loving and wise. And then as we progress to be able to make deeper spiritual realizations that can eventually bring us to achieve liberation, or as Don Brown's not here this morning, is he? No. Don was talking about deliverance to me in the car the other day. Do you know the word deliverance? When I tried to check in the dictionary and Wikipedia just to see what Christianity talked about, it came out with the famous movie. That was the main thing with John Voight and who was the other one? Burt Reynolds and so on. But deliverance is a word that's related with resurrection and deliverance from sin in Christianity, right? Deliverance from sin and Protestant traditions believe apparently that by faith alone you'll be delivered from sin, you'll be liberated, and Catholicism thinks that you have to just put it, very roughly, that you have to also do good works. So anyway, from a Buddhist perspective, deliverance from negativity, we call sin or negative karma, and the causes of that, the passions, the unsubdued mind, the klesha, delusions and so forth, that doesn't come about as a gift from the Buddha. We can be inspired by the Buddha. It doesn't come about by faith alone. It comes about through meditation. And so that's something very special about Buddhism, that it's kind of meditation holds a very important part in Buddhist practice. So the different kinds of meditation, one that Geshe-la mentioned last time, but it may not be something that connected with your mind stream, or maybe if you've heard before it did. He was talking about what's called Shargom. If anyone know a little bit Tibetan, do you know what Shargom is? So Shargom is what we often call glance meditation. And those of you who are familiar with the different rituals that go on, the pujas, when we do the Lama Chopa, the Guru Puja, at the end of the puja there's a point when we meditate, we say a verse for the various stages of the path, one about recognizing, the Guru, to be guided by the Guru in future lifetimes, and one about the perfect human rebirth, and one about death and impermanence and karma and so forth, all the way through different verses. Reciting something like that, just thinking about it, sort of glancing at it, or panoramic view of the path, is a kind of meditation. you're familiarizing with that, and that itself can be very beneficial, especially if you've meditated on those individual elements in the past in detail. Then when you say those particular verses, just glancing over them, there can be generated a remembering consciousness of the feeling of that simply by saying the words. But until you've meditated on those individual verses in detail, until you've done analytical meditation, that's another kind of meditation, until you've meditated analytically on those and got some experience of them, simply saying the words is not going to have that much effect. It'll be something beneficial, but you won't get the taste of it. Does it make sense? What I'm saying? So that's why often when I lead a retreat or something, rather than doing a lot of prayers, I like people to meditate on the meaning of the prayers, so that later when they say, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and the highest assembly until I'm enlightened, due to the merits of generosity and the other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. You actually have meditated on the meaning of all those things. Then saying those words can bring back a experience that you've had before. We call it a remembering consciousness. I don't know, maybe there's a better word in English that's more precise. It's sort of like an experience of that. So Shargong, first kind of meditation, just glance meditation. Then there's what's called Jokgong, I guess you can say, analytical meditation. Jaegong, rather. Jaegong means analysis. In the modern practice of Buddhism, that in the Theravada tradition, what's become quite popular here in the States, where people do breathing meditation, and they go to meditation courses where they simply watch the breathing for a long period of time. There may not be so much knowledge about analytical meditation. Some people think all you do is have no thoughts. Right? Like it's sort of a misunderstanding of Zen meditation, also just no thought. Just you do nothing else. That's what meditation is. Have you heard that? Do you get that? Sometimes you get that impression. From a Buddhist perspective, looking at all of the great scriptures of Buddhism, that's a very, talking about one little portion of Buddhist meditation that has its correct place and application, and thinking that it covers all of meditation. Actually, to familiarize with something, it's very useful and important to analyze it mentally. Well, you could call analytical meditation also on your table with your book and looking at the notes and thinking. You could call that analytical meditation, but analytical meditation is best done also in the same kind of posture that you're in now, with the spine erect, whether you're seated in a chair or on a cushion, already familiar with the things you're going to meditate on, analyze, so that you don't have to, oh, what's next, That's why I sometimes during the class the other day, I was asking people, what are the 5 divisions of this? What are this? When you meditate, you should already have in mind the general outlines, the 51 mental factors, the 5 omnipresent mental factors, whatever it might be. And even within that, the subsets, you should have those in mind so you can just focus on one of them and analyze that. Analysis might not sound the same as whatever preconception we have about meditation, but through analysis we become familiar with something. Say, for instance, impermanence. Do you all know what impermanence is? Do you know what impermanence is? Do you know? No. And usually impermanence is one of the great topics of Buddhist meditation. And there are you could say, roughly speaking, there's 2 kinds of levels of impermanence. There's gross impermanence and subtle impermanence. Gross impermanence is when something changes irrevocably. I don't want to break anything here. All these flowers, I was going to tear something off. Go ahead, right? You know, when the cup breaks, you know, oh, it's changed its state. Before that, it looks almost permanent, right? Although it's changing subtly, moment by moment, we don't notice that subtle change. We only notice when it changes grossly. Also, you know, the wrinkles on our face. I'm sure right now I'm one of the oldest ones in the room. Some of you may be close. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's someone. How old are you? Okay, you're just my older sister by a couple of months. I'm 69 last July. So when you get older, you start to notice the wrinkles. Actually, the wrinkles were coming all the time. That's kind of like a gross manifestation, right? Actually, we're changing moment by moment. We're getting older right now, right? It's almost like I find very useful in my own experience when I'm driving in a car moving forward. It's almost as like traveling through time, you know, falling through time. It's only when you reach some, you know, hit the bottom that you think, oh, my time has come. You were approaching death. We are approaching death right now. So that's something that you can analyze. And that kind of analysis is not meant to be morbid. It's not meant to be discouraging. Sometimes commentators about Buddhism get the wrong impression when we talk about death and impermanence as though there's some kind of morbid preoccupation of Buddhists on that, and so discouraging. It has to be that meditation has to be understood in the context of what we can do with the life that we have now, recognizing the value of a human life that we have right now, with incredible freedom to practice the Dharma. We're not oppressed by suffering that we might be in the hell realms. We're not totally lacking the necessities that we might be in the hungry ghost realm. You know, we might feel desire for friendship or need for more wealth or something, but we can make do. We've got enough. It's not like being in the hungry ghost. We're not incapacitated intellectually like many animals. Most animals, although you say to your loving dog, you know, you should practice the path, should be kind to the cats, they'll just wag their tail and thinking you're ready to give them a biscuit or something. If you tell them to circumambulate the soup, unless you've trained them well, they're not going to do that. But we humans, we can. So within the context of recognizing what we have right now, what we can do, the analytical meditation on death, gross impermanence, can be very motivating. I've got to make use of this. Every second I'm getting closer to death, and as you get older, you feel that more imminent, you know, juxtaposition. So analytical meditation brings about a deeper familiarization with the subject rather than just saying the words. Intellectually saying, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. That, you know, that's almost like jargon, like glance meditation, just saying the words, you know. Until you've actually analyzed that and had some experience, merely saying the words doesn't have the same impact on your mind as analyzing it in detail. Yeah, I'm definitely, everyone of the past, the Buddha died, Christ died, Winston Churchill, famous people in history. There's no one you can think of who didn't die. Am I any different? You know, the little children that I see now, they will become adolescents, they'll become teenagers, they'll become young adults, older. elders, they'll die. Seeing that, when you look at a child and so seeing them, and you can say, well, if they can die, I can die. Having those kinds of experiences through analytical meditation brings up some certainty of that subject that you're meditating on. Let's say the inevitability of my own death. The third kind of meditation is what we call placement meditation. Single-pointed placement, sometimes called samadhi or shine, or just even if you're not fully qualified placing the mind single-pointedly on something, just holding the mind on that alone. As an example of death and impermanence, having gotten some experience of the analysis, I'm definitely going to die. When you have that certainty, give up the analysis and just hold that experience in your mind single-pointedly without being distracted. That leaves what we might say a supreme kind of familiarity. That's why people often associate meditation with single-pointed concentration, because that's, in a sense, single-pointed concentration has its place once you've analyzed something, come to a conclusion, understood it, then holding that single-pointedly. You follow? There are other kinds of meditation. So familiarizing the mind with a virtuous state. You can familiarize by just thinking about it generally, like glance meditation, saying the words or something. You can familiarize through analysis. You can familiarize once you've come to a conclusion, holding it single-pointedly. That's like the laser that can leave a much more impactful imprint in the wall than the same amount of energy in a light bulb that disperses the energy in all different directions. If it's concentrated in one spot, if you have, if you can do concentrating meditation, placement meditation, that can leave an imprint much more deeply in your subconscious, you might say. Although Buddhism doesn't usually talk about subconscious, it sounds like something below conscious, still conscious, still consciousness, right? When we talk again, if you're interested in on what day we have our class, Thursday or Friday nights, if you're interested, we're talking just beginning the subject on the mind and mental factors about Buddhist psychology. It's time to catch up. You can hear the first lecture, I think, on the website. But in addition to that, other ways to familiarize the mind with a virtuous state is simply to calm the mind. And that's what I've mentioned earlier. I'm going to go back to that, these three kinds: Shargom, the glance meditation, the analytical meditation, and placement meditation. But simply what people often think of as meditation is just calming the mind by watching the breathing, say, for instance. Are you familiar with that? So-called breathing meditation. How does that fit in? Is that one of these other kinds of meditation? Let me see. This gentleman, what do you think? Are you a student of the center? Do you know breathing meditation? Would that fit into one of those categories? Fits in all categories. Good answer. Hedging your bets. Yeah. Sometimes Western Buddhism now, it almost as though that's what people think is the main kind of meditation. Let's say like from Barre, Massachusetts, the insight meditation and these kind of things. Then there's the Zen meditation I mentioned before, that people think meditation is just having no thoughts whatsoever, but generally just quietly doing something like that. So breathing meditation, the Buddha taught as a way to, especially to quickly get rid of the monkey mind that's going on in our mind, what we more precisely, rather than saying monkey mind, more precisely called discursive thought. Right now in your consciousness, in your mental consciousness, and here I'm not talking about your eye consciousness, ear, nose, taste, or tactile consciousness, but your mental consciousness within which you're thinking, there are thoughts going through it. There are maybe subliminally you're still planning what you're going to have for lunch today, or what, you know, when you're going for vacation, or the next weekend's football game, or there may be memories of yesterday, your team won or lost, or argument you had with someone. There may be recurrent themes that are going on in your mind. I'm such a miserable person, you know. I am really, really great, or, you know, the different, and they may alternate. We go up and we go down all the time. That's the nature of our samsaric experience, rising and falling, going up and down. Sometimes we're, you know, we might think of people that are manic depressive or bipolar as being unusual, but we all have that tendency there. We have times when we're up, and there are times when we're down. Through our mind, if you begin to watch it, like a person sitting at a cafe watching the pedestrians walk by, not getting involved in their discourse or their interactions, but just watching them, you know, or watching the people in the cafe. Watch what's in your mind. All sorts of thoughts coming. And because of those thoughts coming naturally, because of past familiarity with them, their interaction between them, you know, you think, you know, he did that, then he did that, then he did that. You know, you're getting angry and you're remembering this, you hold grudges and never gonna forget that, and all of these different things that are going on, or the other way, she did that, then she did that, then she did that. You know, I mean, it's can give rise to attachment also. You know, not just not that I put the man with the anger and the woman with the attachment, but it can work both ways. So the breathing meditation the Buddha taught was one of the most efficient ways to subdue discursive thoughts. These thoughts that are like the inhabitants of the cafe of our mind, if you want, you know, the space of our mind. All of these things that are coming there unbidden, and we're unaware of them, and they actually demand our attention. My teacher, Geshe Zopa, who just passed away, whose holy body was just cremated, Wendy King was just mentioning she'd gone up for the cremation. Geshe used to say, you know, these different thoughts that come in our mind, it's almost like they're our captain. You know, so we say, you know, the mind says, be angry. Yes, sir. You know, the thought comes and we do what it, you know, what we're thinking. We don't have to do that way. Yes, sir. You know, by calming the mind, we can kind of clean off like if I want to do my income tax or my schoolwork or something, I clean off the kitchen table, right, or the work table, so that I have place to concentrate on what I'm doing. Same thing, I want to get rid of the anger and the jealousy and the attachment and everything. Right now I'm going to put them back because it's useful to know the time. But anyway, so I can remember when I'm supposed to end. So when we do breathing meditation, it is not an end-all. It can fall into the category of meditation, because if we familiarize with that calm state when we let go of other thoughts. And how do we let go of the other thoughts? By focusing on one. We still need something to focus on. We focus on the breathing. Something that's always there while you're alive. It's not as though you have to search like an image of the Buddha. You can concentrate on the image of the Buddha to concentrate the mind too, but you have to first generate that. You might forget it. Where is it? How does he look like? And breathing's not like that. It's always there, easy to find, and relatively vibrant, gross, obvious. So when you do breathing meditation, it's not generally, although there are breathing meditations, pranayama, different kinds of meditations where you actually control and do various kinds of postures and so forth. The breathing meditation that's meant to calm the mind is something where you simply watch the respiration as though right now, if I were to say to you, listen, there was some traffic going by, the air conditioning, some rustling in the room. Did you have to make that sound to hear it? No, you're just passively watching. The same thing with the breathing meditation. You're not trying to control the breathing to watch it in a certain way. Right now, without even having to change your posture, just be aware of your breathing. Watch your breathing for a moment. That's the state that we do. So then when you try to do it in meditation, it might change a little bit because you're trying more, your body is in a different posture, but simply watching the mind and watching the breathing to the exclusion of everything else, all these other thoughts. And the efficacy of that, the special feature of that, is that by concentrating on one thing, putting more and more of your mental energy on this, even though some of your attention may be drawn to other memories that are coming up or thoughts that are naturally coming up because of the continuity of your thinking, by concentrating on this, you deprive these other thoughts of your attention. When you don't pay attention to those thoughts, they naturally diminish in their intensity. And over time, they diminish in their frequency. How often, like say if there's irritation in your life, some irritating thought that comes up, someone, they disrespected me, they didn't like, okay, then you think about the things, and then it comes up again, and then when you think about it, you actually pay attention to that, and it hurts you, and you think more and more. That's not really meditation, because that's familiarizing with an unwholesome state, but it's almost like meditating on negativity. So as you focus on one object, say the breathing, when I say object, an object of observation, to the exclusion of other things, they begin to diminish in their intensity. So they're not distracting you so much, so you can invest even more of your energy in the breathing. And then it has the greater benefit that the frequency of those, how often they'll come up in the future, those discordant thoughts and so forth, they will be diminished. But the purpose then of doing that meditation after some period of time is, like I said before, like cleaning off the table so that you can do analytical meditation or glance meditation or placement meditation. That's the purpose of that breathing meditation. Capito? Yeah, I was in Italy too long. You know Italian? Are you Italian by any chance? No. Capita, capita, do you understand? Oh, capita. I think that's right. Is that right? I mean, I can't even remember. Is it capish? 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 Oh, capito. I understand. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, capito means I understand. Yeah. Sorry, forgot. Our Italian expert. She brought me espresso coffee before she was a nun and biscotti. So don't bring that unless you want to take ordination. There might be some karmic connection between offering Italian coffee and biscotti to me and becoming a nun. Just joking. Okay, so let's segue into that. Let's do a little meditation. breathing meditation, although you've done this numberless times before, some of you. Sit comfortably, relax your body. I like to even tell myself like that, relax. You almost have to concentrate on that. With the spine erect, relax. Eyes partially open so you're not falling asleep, focused on a neutral area in front of you. And then relax the mind. And the way to do that is much more difficult, is just to remind yourself, I don't have to think about anything else right now. I'm just going to practice this spiritual practice. And begin by just sort of slowly paying attention to the breathing. Don't control it. And in a sense, there's a certain analysis here, recognizing when it's going in. It requires a certain wisdom, observation, so it falls under analytical meditation. Now I'm breathing in. Just reaching its full inhalation. You don't necessarily think of the words, but you recognize you're breathing in. Now I'm breathing down. Actually, when you don't pay attention like that, you may not, there may be times when you're not, you know there's some breath going in, breath happening, but you don't know whether you're inhaling or exhaling. So recognize you're exhaling. It's just reaching the end. It's changing directions. Try to be aware of that point also when it changes direction. If other thoughts come up, recognize it that they're, and it's sort of like having seen someone out of the corner of your eye. Focus more on the breathing and let that thought dissipate, because it will disappear as you don't pay attention to it. Some distracting thoughts. The practice is not done with your eye consciousness, so there's no sort of bring your attention away from that. At first, it may be more related with your tactile consciousness, the raising and lowering of your abdomen or your solar plexus, or the breath that's felt at the nostrils. Then add another burden to your mental activity here. Count the breaths mentally. I don't want to hear anyone saying numbers out loud. You can either think this is the first inhalation, now it's becoming the first exhalation, something like that. Or you can imagine visually a number, like one of those calendars, with numbers that flip over, or a clock where the numbers flip over, like 1, 2, 3. here, as you're trying to think of the numbers also, you more easily notice when other thoughts are going on in the background. It can amaze you, even after many minutes of meditation, there's all these thoughts going on. Take your attention away from those other thoughts and reinvest it in the observation of the breathing. And relax, bring your attention back. Anyone have an observation? You want to share? Yes. Yeah, it should breathe. Better to breathe through your nose unless you're congested. That's generally, there's certain kinds of meditations, pranayama, where you breathe in the nose, out the mouth, or vice versa, or just through the mouth, but generally through your nose. Sometimes you even, some meditation practices, they say to try to feel just here, this area right here, to feel when you're breathing in, there'll be a cool sensation here because the breath you're breathing in is from the ambient temperature of the room. When you breathe out, it's a little warmer because it's been warmed by your body, right? You can actually, because tactile consciousness actually is aware is what is aware of temperature. Can measure, is cognizant of temperature. So usually we breathe in and out through the nose. Anyone have experience? Yeah. What was your?
My observation is one of the distracting issues when I'm with other people are my cell phone or what I will do to bother or affect other people, and that's something that is hard for me to let go of and get back to what I'm supposed to be focusing on.
Yeah, that's a big thing today, isn't it? The now the Apple Watch and everything, all these different watches and things like that. Yeah, I think if you do meditation in the morning, although there might be some emergencies, especially if you're on call as a doctor or there's some as an engineer, you have to go off. You might have to put it out of sight. But if there's an emergency, I don't know how you can put a certain ringtone, blank ringtone for everyone else other than your superior or from the hospital or something like that. Generally, probably good to put away those things so they're not that's like physically cleaning off the tabletop, and then cleaning off on a deeper level, letting go of the thoughts and worries before you begin your formal meditation session to sort of do this kind of breathing meditation. Yeah. Okay. What?
It's really helpful to take all metal off of your body. So if you're wearing earrings or jewelry or a watch or a lot of metal, take it off and your vibration will really change and you can deepen your concentration more easily.
I hadn't heard that. I suppose it's probably good to be wearing crystals also and other things, but I'm not so aware of that. Yes.
I find that, like many other people, my mind just wanders no matter how I try to focus. I still find it wandering. And what has helped me is I heard recently someone say that when your mind wanders and you notice, instead of berating yourself for saying, oh, my mind went crazy again, congratulate yourself for noticing. Because previously I didn't notice and I'd be on another planet before I knew it.
That's good. Yeah, I like that. That's good advice. Yeah, certainly don't want to berate yourself, but you can sometimes, when you're counting, if you lose count, you can be like the Swiss school teacher or something. I don't know what what was the kind of school teacher that would have been the most disciplined one, really, hit you with a ruler or something like that. go back to one, so that you are focused. You need a little carrot and stick. There's certain of our personalities, we need both. A little bit of discipline, squeezing, and then there's sometimes you need to loosen up. You need to find the right balance. In fact, the great meditators talked about that in deeper level, approaching single-pointed concentration. That's considered to be a very important thing, to find the right balance between being too tight. It's almost like the stick, and the carrot. Just relaxing. It's hard to find that balance.
Yeah, I get really confused with what to do with the eyes, because I've heard several points of view about that.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that, like you said, have the eyes open, slightly open, and and then I've also heard that it's okay to have the eyes lightly closed. I find that when I try to have the eyes slightly open, my eyes get really tired. And then I find that I'm no longer focusing on the breath. I'm focusing on what's going on with my eyes.
Right.
And so then I'm no longer meditating on the object that I want to meditate on.
Right.
But I find that if I have my eyes closed, then that's really helpful to me, because then I can just really focus on the breath. So is the goal to actually have your eyes open like the Buddha? They always say the Buddha has his eyes slightly open. Is that the goal that we should be working on, or?
Well, what you heard is good, that you can have your eyes closed. You can have your eyes open too, although generally when your eyes are open, there's the tendency of, sort of catching up to something visual, something in your visual field, When your eyes are closed, there's the tendency, when you do longer meditation, for the mind to sink. Because it's just like when you want to take a nap, you'll close the blinds, or you'll put something over your. When I lay down, I put a pillow over my eyes, just up here, just so there's the light itself keeps the mind more on the active state. So when you close your eyes, there is the tendency of sinking. So although in some meditations, like in Dzogchen or in Nyingma tradition or something, certain higher meditations, when actually it has, like Padmasambhava, or like Kechubje, the eyes sort of open, but that's not where we're at. That's, generally it's considered one of the 7 postures of the Buddha Vairochana, that Marpa, the translator that came to India to study Buddhism and translate, and came back to Tibet and helped to bring the Kagyu tradition. And he used to talk about, he said, other meditators, it's just my physical posture far better than all their other meditation, just my posture. The 7-point posture of Vairochana, one of which is the eyes slightly open, focused down to a neutral area in front. If you do Hatha Yoga, some of you do Hatha Yoga, if you read the manuals, and I don't know if the teachers, who drove me yesterday, I can't remember. Yeah, do you talk about the dristi, where you in some of the manuals they talk about, in each of the postures there's a certain place you're supposed to focus the eyes. So here it's a similar kind of thing. It's called, like the word view, or dristi in Sanskrit. You're focusing down here, but don't let that become a distraction. But over time, you'll find that can actually aid your meditation. It's something like this, like sitting cross-legged. Many of us sit in chairs now. That's fine. But if you were a teenager and you didn't have an injury, and you were like a monk or nun, or you wanted to meditate, we would say, now train in getting your muscles limber and so forth, because ideally for long-term meditation, if you're going to meditate for many hours, it would be better to sit cross-legged. But sitting in a chair is fine. I mean, the future Buddha is Maitreya, the representation, is always sitting in a chair, ready to enter into the world. That posture is called, right? So same thing with the eyes. If you find that it's becoming too distracting, close them. But at the beginning of the session, same thing when we say mantra. And there's some rituals when we're supposed to begin the recitation of the mantra with one hand, with certain fingers, and that's so awkward. But you do auspiciously, you do a couple that way, and then you go back to whatever is natural. So for auspiciousness, at the beginning, sit for a little while and get familiar with that, and then let that go. So you let the eyes close a little, maybe open a little bit so that occasionally, so that you're not sinking. That would be my guess. So what you heard is, people say it's okay to be eyes closed. Yeah, it's okay. But ideally, it's good to prevent the sinking, to have them slightly open. Okay. Anyone else have this young lady has a, yeah. Look at that.
Well, I have an experience when I'm meditating and observing my breath. After a while, when I get really deep into it, I start traveling. Like it's almost like I'm more aware of the air traveling to my body, and I start feeling very conscious of every single function that my body's doing. My diaphragm, the heart, pump, the lungs, and I started getting more conscious of what my body is doing.
So
because
that's
of the breath.
so there. Although when you watch the breathing, there's different instructions that different teachers gave, and even the Buddha gave different instructions. Sometimes he said to watch the rising and lowering of the diaphragm. Sometimes the rising and lowering this way of the tummy, the abdomen. Sometimes just to feel the breath here or at the nostrils. But in the Abhidharma also, it's sometimes just simply imagining the breath coming in without imagining any of those, just knowing that you're breathing in, which is less on the tactile consciousness. It's not depending on feeling the tummy or the diaphragm or here, just knowing that the breath is going in almost on a subtler level, almost like the subtle prana. So then just let go. These other sensations would be distractions. So let go of those the same way that you'd let go attention to an itch, if you can, or attention to a sound when the train goes by. Although the mind, at first, because we don't have deep concentration, the mind is the ear consciousness hears that, and the mind pays attention. So bring your attention back to just the breathing, even through that. So the same way, when you're watching your breathing, maybe let go of watching the diaphragm or the others. Just be aware. It's coming in, it's changing, it's going out. And if you can add the numbers, that can sometimes be useful. You don't have to add counting, but that the purpose of that, right? Why adding the counting? If I'm holding this and holding this, and Venerable were to hand me has in her hand a cup of espresso and a biscotti, I've got nowhere to grab them, right? Because my mind is occupied with, my hands are occupied with this. In the same way, if our mind is occupied with watching the breathing and counting, there's less chance for it to get engaged in, the usual kinds of thoughts. And so even some other thought sort of pops its little attractive or ugly head up. We recognize I'm losing the number, so we pay more attention to this, and that by the very nature of our mind, as we take attention away from something, it begins to diminish. It's a little bit this kind of process of calming the mind is a little bit like reformatting your hard drive. This is a technology triangle, right? Is there anyone who doesn't know what that means? Now, okay. There's always one or two that doesn't know. Okay, But so Robert Thurman, who's going to be coming in what, a week or 2 or 3, used to use that expression, reformatting the human hard drive for, letting go, like being like a child, again, in Christian terminology. There was someone this morning reminded us of the quotation, what was it? In order to enter the kingdom of heaven, you have to be like a child, was Christ said, right? So in a sense, I take that to mean, as there may be many different interpretations, but in Christian point of view, but I take that to mean like you have to give up your ego, who you think you are, clean out. It's like reformatting your hard drive, because right now all of these thoughts that are going through our mind have a certain relationship to our ego identity, who we think we are. I'm a woman. I'm a man. I'm a North Carolinian. I'm a Christian. I'm a Buddhist. All sorts of ego identities, or I'm basically bad. I'm something wrong with me. Others don't love me. Or I am so good. What do they say? I'm so hot. All sorts of things. I mean, maybe there will be moments when you have various of those thoughts, and you can sometimes get yourself in a funk and be down, and we go up and down all the time. It's the nature of cyclic existence. So this breathing meditation can help to clean the mind. Then we can, within that breathing, having given up that breathing meditation, we can attend to the other meditation, analytical meditation. We just talked about the glance meditation, right? Shargom, like at the beginning of a meditation session, you might do, after the breathing meditation, you do all of these meditations. You do Shargom, you do like some prayers. May all sentient beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering, like this, 4 immeasurables, or a glance meditation on the stages of the path, like Yondin Shigirma, the foundation of all good qualities, or the glance meditation from Lama Chopa or something. Just to remind yourself of where you are and where you're going. And then to do analytical meditation on one of those. More detail. Purpose being this. When you say these prayers without having had experience of them, since I talked earlier this morning, the same things, I'm not sure if I mentioned this to you before this time. Did I say this before? Earlier? Say, for instance, if you just do Shargom, just like glance meditation about something, just thinking, this life is fleeting, like a bubble, short duration, but it's of such great value, difficult to find again. Simply saying those words has some benefit. But if you haven't done analytical meditation on that, analyze those points, it won't have much flavor. By flavor, I mean experience, what that actually means. Once you've actually analyzed one of those topics in detail, done analytical meditation, then saying the words, just saying the words can bring tears to your eyes, or your hairs can rise, or very strong confidence in the Buddha, or, a mind of faith and so forth can rise simply by saying the words. So it's important to do analytical meditation, to analyze one of those topics. And so, and as a result of that analysis, at the end of the analysis, once you've come to some conclusion like that this life is incredible value, so much more valuable than what I might have in the bank, or whether I have friends that respect me or love me, just to have this life still, to be able to practice the Dharma is so valuable. Then to hold that thought single-pointedly, this is where you would integrate in the final kind of meditative technique of single-pointed concentration or placement meditation. Once you've come to the conclusion of the analysis, giving up the analysis, but still keeping the flavor or the experience of that meditation, the consequence, I have a perfect human rebirth. This is so valuable. The elation, the positive mind of faith and joy, holding that single-pointedly, that can leave a deeper imprint, like the laser, like the hand pressing into the clay, deeply, not just brushing, but leaving a deep impression in our minds, so that later, throughout the day, there's a feeling of, maybe for weeks, if you did this meditation well, things are okay. Doesn't someone says that you give the taxi driver a $50 bill and they give you change for a 5. Does that ever happen to you? Happens in India a lot. So at a situation like that, it might be like the mind is easily getting angry. So meditating on the perfect human rebirth, it's not as though you're going to let the cab driver get away with it. You just say, excuse me, I gave you a 50. Rather than, hey, I gave you a 50. The mind is more calm. Now, how would you meditate on love? Any idea? Do you know what love is? What is love? In a Buddhist,
Wish for others to be happy.
In a Buddhist perspective, absolutely right. Compassion and love are slightly differentiated. Love is the wish that other living beings be happy, have happiness, and the causes of happiness. And compassion is the wish that living beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering, like we say in the Four Immeasurables. If you have really developed authentically one of those states of mind, you will have the capacity for the other. You'll have if you have real love in your mind, you'll have the capacity for compassion, but they won't necessarily both be present at the same instant. They may oscillate very quickly depending when you're looking at a situation. The little child who's crying in the supermarket, you feel compassion for them, then you want them to be happy, you want them to be free of suffering. As I was saying in the other class, nowadays the situation is such that it's very difficult that you can come and try to, comfort them, because you'd be arrested by the police or something for child molestation. When I was a kid, that was not the case. Probably, but that is the reality, isn't it? So, but to feel compassion and love, how do you meditate on love? Anyone on that? Do you ever meditate on love?
On the analytical meditation, it seems like it would involve a lot of thinking, and that I'm just wondering what analytical meditation is like what it entails. Like, do you just sit there and think about one topic as deeply as you can, or?
I didn't realize the train was so close. Wow. Wow, that's really right there. Yeah, you can, for instance, even with your notes at the table, reading the book and going over your notes, that can constitute analytical meditation. But analytical meditation is best done while seated. I think I mentioned before, that's why it's good to know the outlines that you're going to meditate on. Like, so, what the outlines of the meditation on death are, for instance. That death is definite because it comes to everyone. There's no way to escape it. That with every moment we're getting closer to death, and at the time of death there's no extra time. That we spend most of our life not practicing the Dharma. These various points, you would think about them, see how that, analyze them in various ways with your own life experience. Is there anyone I know who didn't die? No, either little children die, they'll get older, I can see that. My gosh, I'm going to die. Always going back to that as the conclusion, that death is definite. I'm definitely going to die. The purpose of the analytical meditation is to try to give that conclusion. Now, what I was just asking was, what's the analytical meditation to give the experience of love? Love is not just saying, May all sentient beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. But it's actually, yeah.
Would that method be Tonglen?
Actually, love is one of the prerequisites to do Tonglen. We'll talk about in the coming weeks. We'll talk about, that's the reason I'm talking about love right now. Well, let me say, because we're getting close to the end, rather than querying you right now. An analytical meditation on love would be something like this, thinking, okay, wouldn't it be wonderful? You say to yourself, almost like the devil, the good advocate, not the devil's advocate. Wouldn't it be good that everyone was happiness and everyone had happiness? And then part of your mind said, yeah, everyone except Shankar. He dented my fender once, and he dissed me, and and his nose is crooked, and he shouldn't be happy. Then you have to think, you have to analyze whatever the devil's advocate in your mind, or everyone should be happy except what are the ones the terrorists? Was it ISIS or ISIL? Everyone in the world should be happy except them. They should go to hell. They should suffer. You have to sort of counter that and recognize that if everyone had happiness, the situation would be much different. There would not be people on the street that were molesting you because they'd be happy. They wouldn't be discontent. If the people that are irritating you right now were basically happy, their whole behavior would be different. In fact, if you were happy, you wouldn't be so irritated, and they wouldn't be acting in an irritating way. Things would be more harmonious. There wouldn't be the graft and the corruption and the worry and the insecurity. So you can use your own ego at first, because we're still at the beginning of the practice. Although we'd like to be able to eradicate the ego and work selflessly, at the beginning we're still under the influence of number one. You know what I mean, number one. And in Japan, they often go like this. Any Japanese here? When they talk about me, they always point to the nose for some reason. It's interesting. I don't know why. But people, when they think mind, they often point here. But often the sense of I is associated with the heart chakra from Buddhist perspective. So to have that, to do an analytical meditation on love would mean meditating in that way. That the great benefit, if others had happiness, and also using oneself as an example. When I'm happy, how wonderful that is. How I feel, everything is okay. Other sentient beings, other living beings are exactly the same. There's no difference. What unfortunate, if others are unhappy, I know what that's like when I'm unhappy. You're more irritable, even the food doesn't bring you any pleasure. Little things bother you so much. Exactly like yourself, using that as a reason, we talk about equalizing oneself and others. How wonderful it would be if others were happy, because I know what it's like for me to be happy. And using oneself as an example, things would be better for me if everyone was happy. There'd be harmony, there'd be less strife and war and so forth. Once through reasons like this and many others that you'll find in Shantideva and other texts, you get a little flavor of that, the individuals that previously might have been difficult not to place within your sphere of wishing them to be happy, they now appear, the thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if Shankar was happy, that the ISIS was happy, that whatever. When you have that feeling, then you can let go of the analysis and just hold that experience. It's almost like radiating from your heart, smiling from your heart. It's said that even one thought instant of loving kindness like that, that encompasses all beings, not just one, wishing your child to be happy or your wife or husband or whatever, but or your race or your women or men or whatever, all beings. Wouldn't it be one instant of that is said to be more meritorious than offering great physical wealth and food to the whole universe? Credible virtue would be done by that, but one moment of love has so much more value. So you hold that then single-pointedly as long as you can until that experience begins to diminish. And then depending on your meditation session, you engage a little more in analysis to get that feeling back and then hold it. Or at the end of the session, that's the culmination of your meditation session. Now, my little reminder up here says 11:55. It's 11:58 according to this clock, so I've gone over 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So we'll end in a second. Thank you for coming. I will be here for the next 5 weeks. You're welcome to come on Sunday. If you have a chance to come on the Friday night, right? Class on mind and mental factors, it might be very interesting. Some grist for the Dharma mill. Think about the Buddhist psychology in a deeper way to be able to recognize the different mental states. Then when you do your daily practice, just walking around during the day, one of the great precepts of the training of the mind is to be aware of your mind stream throughout all actions. And whenever disturbing states arise, to recognize them and avert them without delay. To recognize them, if you don't know what the defining characteristics are, you don't know that you're getting angry. You don't know that jealousy has arisen. You don't know that pride is there. So we will be talking about that in the antidotes. You're welcome to come. And let's do, although we're 4 minutes over, let's just do a short dedication mentally, meditatively. Think this morning I've had some motivation at the beginning with the prayers, like glance meditation. I've perhaps had some virtuous thoughts today, maybe even some small experiences. I've created some virtuous karma during this period. And of course, I've accumulated virtuous karma previously this lifetime and in the previous lifetimes. All of this virtue, wouldn't it be wonderful if it ripened in such a way that it wasn't simply wasted on some trivial, pleasurable experience in the future, but I'm going to wish, strongly, motivate, aspire that it ripen in such a way that it enhances my spiritual practice from life to life, from hour to hour, week by week, day by day, life by life. As a result of these merits, may I continually encounter the spiritual path in whichever way it arises around me. May I become a better person for others, and as a result, may it bring benefit to all sentient beings. Due to these merits, may I quickly become enlightened for the sake of all sentient beings. If you have some flavor of that, hold that single-pointedly, that flavor, that experience. Thank you very much. Good to see you. See you again. I'm off to Asheville, just north of Asheville, for a couple of days. I have to have some windows installed in my meditation cabin up there, but I'll be back on Wednesday. If you want to have an interview or something, there's someone who can tell you. I can't remember who the person to see. I'll be seeing people. Thank you very much.
Just like to remind everyone, we'll have a volunteer meeting for anybody who wants to just learn a little more about volunteering or learn a little bit more about center structure. We'll be meeting in about 5 minutes right in here.